The summer of 1940, France lay stunned and divided. Within just 6 weeks, Nazi Germany had crushed the nation it once called the Invincibility. What happened? How did one of the world's great powers collapse so quickly? And how did this unexpected outcome change the course of World War II? Join us as we unravel the secrets of France's stunning defeat and the factors that led to the downfall of an empire. In the late 1930s, Europe stood on the brink of war. As Adolf Hitler's aggressive expansionism threatened peace, France found itself at a critical crossroads. Bound by its strong ties to Britain, France felt compelled to honor its commitment to defend Belgium, not only because of their mutual alliance, but also due to the strategic importance of Belgium as a potential launching point for future German attacks. This sense of obligation and defense became a pivotal factor in shaping France's response to the brewing conflict. But it wasn't just external pressures that influenced France's decision. Internal political tensions also played a significant role. The legacy of World War I still loomed large over French minds. The devastating losses and the costly victory had left an indelible mark on the nation. Against the backdrop of this somber past, many French citizens were deeply reluctant to become embroiled in another costly conflict. This internal discord created a complex web of motivations, obligations, and fears that profoundly impacted France's approach to the looming war. In the face of these challenges, France made a crucial choice. On September 1, 1939, following Germany's invasion of Poland, France, along with Britain and other allies, declared war on Germany. This declaration was not a mere formality. It signified France's determination to confront the rising tide of German aggression and defend the balance of power in Europe. As the guns fell silent, the true extent of the devastation became clear. Over 42,000 square kilometers of French territory had been seized, an area nearly the size of Denmark. It wasn't just land that changed hands. Nearly 23 million people now found themselves under the control of the Germans. These numbers are more than statistics. They represent the human cost of war, the lives uprooted, the futures disrupted. After the armistice, a tense calm settled over France. The north and west were firmly under the control of the Germans. Here, the Nazi flag fluttered in the wind, a stark symbol of the new order. The puppet government established in Vichy in the southern part of the country attempted to maintain some semblance of control, though its authority was significantly limited. This division was more than geographical. It was a psychological barrier that ran through the heart of France. The north suffered the direct and brutal impact of the occupation. Curfews, deportations, forced labor all became part of everyday life. The Germans aimed to drain the occupied zone of resources and manpower, contributing to the overall war effort. This systematic exploitation not only devastated the economy, but also created a deep-seated resentment among the French populace. Meanwhile, in the south, the Vichy regime struggled to maintain order. The collaborationist government attempted to appease the occupier, but this did little to shield the region from the effects of the war. Food shortages and economic hardships were widespread. Despite the hardships, pockets of resistance began to emerge. The French people, particularly the youth, felt a growing anger towards the occupier. This sentiment was not confined to the intellectual elite or political dissidents. It resonated with ordinary citizens who yearned for the liberation of their country. The horrors of war had touched every corner of France, fostering a shared desire for change. But this yearning for change did not translate into immediate action. France was a nation divided. The shock of the defeat and the subsequent occupation had a profound impact on the collective psyche. Many citizens, disillusioned and weary, retreated into a state of resignation. The brutality of the Nazi regime, especially towards the Jews, shocked the conscience of many. Deportations and the introduction of discriminatory laws like the Nuremberg laws created a sense of urgency among those who had remained passive. As the war dragged on and the full extent of the Holocaust became known, the call for resistance grew louder. And then there was Charles de Gaulle. Exiled in London, he tirelessly called for the French to resist the Germans. His broadcasts, filled with defiance and hope, became a beacon for many. Despite the risks, individuals from various walks of life began to respond. Former soldiers, intellectuals, students, all came together to form resistance networks. The primary objective: survival. The Nazi occupation was marked by extreme measures designed to subjugate the French population. From curfews to forced labor, the aim was to bend the French to the occupier's will. Under these dire circumstances, basic necessities like food and medicine became scarce, making survival a daily challenge. This struggle for survival often took place in the shadows. Black markets emerged where essential goods were traded illegally to evade the tight grip of the rationing system. The risk was high, but the need was greater. As the war intensified, the danger of air raids loomed large. Bombs fell from the sky, turning once familiar streets into scenes of destruction. In the face of this danger, the French people had to make harrowing decisions. Evacuation was an option, but it meant leaving behind homes and livelihoods. Staying put, however, carried the risk of death or injury. Caught between these grim choices, families grappled with agonizing questions. Despite the hardships, acts of courage and kindness shown through neighbors helped neighbors. Strangers risked their lives to aid others. Amidst the despair, humanity flickered on. As the Allied forces advanced, a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon. Liberation was within reach, but it came at a cost. The final stages of the war saw intense battles between the Allies and the Nazis. Cities and towns bore the brunt of this struggle, often being reduced to rubble. The liberation, while celebrated, was bittersweet. It brought with it the painful task of rebuilding and coming to terms with the legacy of the occupation. One of the most disturbing aspects of the Nazi occupation was the systematic persecution and deportation of Jews from France. The Nazi regime implemented a policy of racial discrimination and violence against Jewish communities across Europe, and France was no exception. The persecution escalated with the introduction of discriminatory laws, such as the Nuremberg Laws, which stripped Jews of their citizenship and prohibited them from various professions. As the occupation tightened its grip, the Nazis established segregated areas or ghettos where Jews were confined. The conditions in these ghettos were appalling, characterized by overcrowding, malnutrition, and disease. The constant threat of deportation loomed over the Jewish population. Families were torn apart as men, women, and children were forcibly taken from their homes and transported to concentration and death camps. Many of those deported were never seen again. The Veldehive Roundup in July 1942 remains a haunting symbol of this dark chapter. Over 13,000 French Jews were rounded up and deported to Auschwitz in a single day. The collaboration of some elements of the Vichy regime in implementing these policies adds a tragic dimension to this dark episode. The liberation of France marked a turning point, not only in the war, but also in the history of the nation. When Allied forces arrived, it was a moment of euphoria. The people of France had endured years of hardship, occupation, and fear. The news of the advancing troops was like a breath of fresh air. Celebrations erupted in the streets as people waved flags, sang songs, and embraced their liberators. But the reality of the situation was far from celebratory. The scars of war ran deep. Cities were in ruins, the economy was shattered, and the psychological toll on the population was immense. The first task was to clear the land of mines, a dangerous job that claimed many lives. Rebuilding homes and restoring essential services became a priority. The French people, resilient and determined, rose to the challenge. They cleared the rubble, rebuilt their towns, and got their lives back on track. But the true measure of liberation was more than bricks and mortar. It was the restoration of rights, the return of freedoms, and the pursuit of justice. The horrors of the occupation and the collaborationist regime could not be ignored. Trials were held to bring those responsible to justice. The process was long and often controversial, but it was a step towards healing. As the dust settled and France began to heal, the world marveled at the resilience of the French people. Their story during World War II is one of courage, resistance, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. It serves as a reminder of the cost of war and the importance of freedom.